programs and how those are doing, and now that the time of year when lottery and everybody's finding out where or if there have been in those programs. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Can I make one comment about the agenda? We did pull an item tonight, and that was our adoptions. And the reason for pulling that item is normally during our curriculum adoptions, we do a public viewing of those materials. And we discovered this week that the notification to schools around the public viewing of those materials was inadvertently not made. We had a personnel change in the office, and the person who was responsible for doing that was leaving the district, and it did not get done, and we thought it was done, et cetera, and we discovered that this week. So what we've done is pulled that from the agenda. We will start the public viewing of those materials this month, and then we will bring it back to the board at the next board meeting for your consideration. So I just wanted to give the board and the public the reason for pulling those items from the agenda.
Do we need to change our motion to accept the agenda as modified?
I'll make that motion.
So,
Second.
okay, the motion to accept the edited agenda with the removal of the one item, which is on tab 12. And I have a second on that. So all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we can move forward to the host school and kind of roll into recognition and
Great.
one thing.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Tonight, of course, is one of our favorite nights because we have the PTSA hosting the host school tonight, and they're going to share some wonderful work with us, I believe. So I'd like to invite the PTSA leadership to come forward and bring the board through their evening. You just want to go that one right there. Okay, that's fine.
I think we're okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So we were really excited to have a plethora of art, and, well, you can see it all. So I'll post it up here. In our reflections this year, we had 420 students out of 40 schools, 39 schools. And so tonight we have 4 guests that are going to present their work to you. We're going to start with Tio Costilla from ICS. She's got a literature piece.
Okay. So this is called The Bus. Rosa counts the cracks in the pathetic excuse of a street below her, watching it take her further and further away from her bittersweet childhood in East LA. Panic rises like bile in her throat as the bus meant to provide her with her blissful escape passes by. She runs past the vandalized and threadbare bus stop and excessively thanks the tired bus driver for an unexpected act of kindness in stopping as she hands Rosa her ticket. The driver stares at Rosa's rubicund fingers as she clutches a seemingly insignificant piece of paper with all her strength, unaware of the years of distress and misery the ticket will obliterate and the hopes and desires it will help her fulfill. She moves to the back of the crowded bus and sits on the less filthy of the 2 remaining seats before setting her suitcase beside her. Her mind wanders as her tired brown eyes stare out the cracked window and trace the familiar sights racing by. The paralyzed leg of Anton, the despondent homeless man whose only companions for the past 5 years have been the occasional bottle of brandy and his equally forlorn dog, lolls out of his derelict sleeping bag into the sidewalk. Senora Montalban and her dry cleaning store pass by as she dramatically waves her hands in the air, no doubt retelling her latest bit of gossip to her jaded husband. Memories of homework and chocolate chip cookies until midnight crash down on Rosa. Next, the park where her 10th birthday party was cut short with a shooting of a gang member down the street passes by. Rosa turns away as a strange sadness and nostalgia for those days of innocence brings tears to her eyes. She quickly wipes the pesky drops of moisture from her eyes, despising the power memories of her old self still had over her. 19 years old, Rosa looks back on the culmination of her life as Rosa Isabel Montalban. She remembers picking dandelions in the small yet peaceful garden behind the abandoned house where she was born and raised. Her mother and father, both lower middle class at best, juggling multiple minimum wage jobs each to support her and her 4 older brothers and sisters, cross her mind. Rosa feels the eyes of the old woman across the aisle from her, staring relentlessly at her. She shakes her head slightly, attempting to dispel thoughts that might tempt her to get off this smelly, crowded bus and run back to the place she has been told she belongs. Suddenly, the bus stops in a posh neighborhood in Beverly Hills, and Rosa feels the callous demolisher of confidence, anxiety, begin to course through her veins. Had God heard her? Was this his way of guiding her to that right path of selflessness? Her knees begin to shake, and she feels an unstoppable force begin to pull her up and off the fraying seat. Suddenly, a young boy with pink and blue hair, music blasting from his ratty headphones and clashing horrendously with the picturesque background behind him, jumps onto the bus. Rosa sighs in frustration as she sits back down, aware that the doubt she was sure she had expelled from her heart and mind was still very much present. She stares at the dirt underneath her worn nails, trying to recall any other girl at her prestigious high school daring to come to school with nails like these. The yearly cost of their perfectly manicured nails alone could pay her parents' rent for a month. Despite her 4.0 GPA to maintain her scholarship, her kind and patient demeanor towards those who had sneered at the color of her skin and the blindingly white always at school, she knew she would never live up to their expectations. These nails were the reason she was leaving her life, leaving those who she knew loved her despite their actions behind, for a college education and what she knew to be a better life. Rosa shifts in her seat and cringes as the fresh bruise on her leg throbs. Her oldest brother had been so angry the previous night. Although she had been telling herself for years he was just overwhelmed with the fact that he was 30 years old and still living at home, trying to provide for his sick retired parents, she realizes now how wrong the pain she endured was. She reminds herself that she'll never feel this way again. Who would have thought?
Thank you, Tio. Next, we have Nicholas Rolls from Evergreen Junior High. He wrote a piano piece. we have Belle Han from Alcott, third grade from Alcott.
My story is Panda Quest. The panda shows in 5 minutes at the Panda exhibit. All attendees please rendezvous at the Panda exhibit. Boomed the loudspeaker at the San Diego Zoo. One lone young panda stood in the exhibit. Pandia was separated from his mother at 1 month old when he was sent to the zoo in a ship across the Pacific Ocean, then driven to the zoo in a truck. He never remembered his mother after 2 months at the zoo, but believed she existed. Pandia often wondered how proud she would be if he saw him now with his fur all grown in. Right now he sat in a tree as high as possible to get away from all the visitors flocked around the exhibit. He hated shows because he was the youngest panda and everyone wanted to touch him. Pandia knew they would get him off the tree, but at least it delayed the show. Already a crowd was forming. Pandia made sure to change the leaves in his record of how quickly the crowds formed at shows. Just then, a man in a plastic suit and rubber boots came out of the building inside the exhibit. The pandas called him the show alert because whenever he came out, the show started. Pandia climbed higher onto the highest tip of the tree. The show alert started climbing the tree, causing the tree to tip sideways. Pandia gripped the trunk of the tree to keep from falling down. He saw the show alert was too heavy for the thin tree. The show alert grabbed a dead branch, the wood cracked, and the show alert fell, then the tree, flung Pandia over the railing. Pandia was free. He ran as fast as he could, occasionally climbing trees to stay away from all the hazardous flailing hands. Sometimes he would jump off trees and run, knowing that this was his opportunity to find his mother. When he climbed the wall surrounding the zoo, Pandia jumped into a nearby truck. There was a lot of food in the truck because it was sending deliveries to a cargo plane headed for China. Pandia practiced climbing the crates and being quiet to pass the time. As the truck was parking at the airport, Pandia hid in a crate. The truck delivered the food to a cargo plane while Pandia was being extra quiet. As soon as he was in the plane, Pandia ate some food. He ate whenever he got hungry, and he slept a lot. Finally, the plane landed in a city much larger than San Diego. Pandia snuck off the plane at night, took a sniff of the dry, arid air, and ran. He ran and ran until he came to the edge of the huge city. He was unused to the new time, and for safety reasons, Pandia ran during the night. He ran to the forest near a great, long, gray, man-made fortress with many people walking on it during the day. He turned west and started to walk. His instincts told him that he should walk west to find his mother, but that meant he had to cross the huge fortress. As he was pondering the problem of crossing the huge fortress, a sandgrouse swooped down upon Pandia. "Yow!" cried Pandia in surprise. "Hey, Panda, what are you doing around the Great Wall? People are going to take pictures of you," said the sandgrouse. "Sorry. I'm looking for my mother, and I think she's somewhere that way." Pandia glanced west. "Sure," said the sandgrouse. "My name's Skyteen." "Mine is Pandia," said Pandia. "I must cross that great wall to get to my mother, but I can't imagine how to go over or around it," says Pandia. Skyteen said, "Why your mother? How old are you?" "I'm 3 months old," replied Pandia. "Wow, you're still a little baby," cried Skyteen. "I'd like to help you find your mother." Skyteen perked up at the thought of babies and her own chicks. "Definitely," said Pandia happily. "There is a collapse of the wall over there," said Skyteen, leading Pandia over to the collapse. "We can cross here." Then they crossed and the journey continued onward. As they climbed a mountain, a monkey named Malay swung to their path, asking to join their traveling group. They agreed, and Malay happily went along, showing them the way through the mountains. Occasionally they would come along upon ditches where Pandia stretched like a bridge to help Malay cross, or rivers where Skyteen looked for help, or times when Malay had to help Pandia climb particularly dense trees. Every night, Pandia found a good spot to sleep, then Malay prepared for his watchman duties, and Skyteen stripped some soft moss off the trees to make little beds. During the day, they all foraged for food when needed. Food was shared. If they found something one friend liked, it was all theirs. The friends traveled for days. The friends continued to travel until one day they reached a very flat valley. This doesn't sound like a good idea, said Malay. As the others peered through the undergrowth, they saw that the valley was not filled with blue-green grass. It was flooded. Suddenly, Pandya had a great idea. He instructed Skyteen to fly across the valley and get some help. Skyteen flew into the forest, standing a little bit above the waterline. Skyteen was off and back in a few minutes, and a huge turtle soon emerged from the water. Come on, everyone, get on. This guy's going to ferry us across, said Skyteen merrily. Everyone climbed on, and each said a million thank yous to the big turtle. Then the journey continued. One day, the friends reached a big desert, and Pandya offered a ride across the hot sand to Malay. Then they went into the desert. Now Skyteen's ability to fly was greatly needed. Every day she flew to get the water from an oasis she had pinpointed as a water source. One day they truly did reach the oasis. The water was amazingly cool, and when each of the friends drank it, they were immediately relieved of all the sweat they had on them. In the desert, the four friends walked. As she flew, Skyteen noticed a blurring yellow in the distance. Pandya noticed it too. Then he sent her to check. As the blur came closer, Skyteen yelled, "Sandstorm, run!" while flying back as fast as possible to avoid the coming danger. Skyteen shouted to Pandya, who was now running under her, one last warning to run, and then he was engulfed by sand blowing about. As the sandstorm approached, Pandya could feel Malay was still on his back, but when he yelled for her, Skyteen did not answer. "I think we lost her," said Pandya sadly to Malay. Then he ran as fast as he could away from the sandstorm. As she was flying, a gust of wind blew Skyteen under a camel, where he instructed her to stay until further notice. While he was running, Pandya knocked into a furry item. The furry item shouted at him, "Get under me!" What Pandya and Malay did as the furry item said, just because it was their only chance. Pandya shook his head to clear his vision. He could see, wait, was that bird in front of him? Skyteen! The friends had a joyful reunion under the belly of a camel named Kalino. As they sat under Kalino's legs, the friends were all very grateful to Kalino for saving their lives. When the storm ended, they offered to let Kalino join their diverse travel group, and Kalino happily agreed. Everyone loved talking with the kind Kalino when they were walking on the journey. As everyone journeyed closer to the area where the bamboo grew, a mountain range was very important to reaching their destination. "I guess we have to cross this place," said Kalino. "Uh-huh," said Pandya. Everyone decided going up the mountain was the best idea. Marching up the mountain was hard enough. Getting through the dense forest on it was harder. If it weren't for Malay's trail-breaking abilities, they would barely be able to get through the forest. Malay swung on branches and climbed about on trees, and he would break jutting boughs and limbs, so a little pathway appeared as he progressed a little ahead of the rest of the travel group. This prevented many cuts from the branches that were quite sharp. One day, Pandya exclaimed, "Bamboo, this is it. We have arrived at the mountains where the bamboo grows. My mother must live here." The four marched all day and night in search of Pandya's mother. As they were searching, an adult panda sprung on them. Pandya screamed, "Stop!" The other panda got off of Malay, Skyteen, and Kalino and looked down at Pandya. "What, you little baby panda? What the heck do you think you're doing? Attacking my friends?" cried Pandya. "Obviously. Because they're intruders," cried the adult panda. "They are not intruders. They are my friends. My name is Pandya, and I'm looking for my mother. They were the ones who helped me come here to find my mother, since I was taken from her when I was 1 month old. Without the bird, I would not be able to cross the Great Wall in the flooded valley. Without the monkey, I would not be able to cross the dense forest. Without the camel, I would not be able to survive the sandstorms in the deserts," Pandya explained. "Pandya, really? Is that really you?" A female panda stepped out of the undergrowth. "It is you, my lost son," she cried happily. Pandya immediately recognized her as his mother and rushed forward shouting, "Mom." Okay. A few weeks later, the entire panda kingdom knew about the journey of Pandia and his friends. They were all so diverse with many different personalities and looks, yet they got along very well and would not be separated. They had traveled many diverse and harsh ecosystems, but they had survived their journey because of one sole reason, the fact that they had helped each other and cooperated and worked together as one group. And when they did so, they were close to invincible. Thank you.
Can we get copies of the stories?
Okay, I need my list here. Okay, next we have, and last we have, Anna Thompson. Thank you, Belle, by the way. Anna Thompson from Ben Franklin, 5th grader from Ben Franklin.
I honestly think I've tried too hard. I'm about to give up and just restart. But people tell me I've got it all. I'm being modest, but please catch me if I fall. I think that I am not enough. I know singing songs are tough. I guess I should show well I'm young. That's my time to shine. I'm such an individual, a pretty independent girl. I want to put on a show, yeah, 'cause it's me. I know I'll do it someday. Just got to believe and keep the faith. God gave me something that's the quality, a musical gift that makes me me. I think that I am not enough. I know singing songs are tough. I guess I should show well I'm young. That's my time to shine. I'm such an individual, a pretty independent girl. I want to put on a show, yeah, 'cause it is me. Yeah, 'cause it is me.
So Anna obviously has a voice, and she left our Reflections, our Founders Day luncheon, and went to America's Got Talent. And so she's going to sing that for you tonight.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. He took took the midnight train going anywhere. I sing her in a smoking room. I smell the wine and cheap perfume. For a smile they can share the night. It goes on and on and on and on. Some will win, some will lose. Some were born to sing the blues. Oh, the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on and on. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Street lights, people. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Street lights, people. Don't stop believing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Street lights, people. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Don't stop.
Well, if there's any doubt that we have a lot of artistic talent in Lake Washington School District, that should definitely put it to rest. Reflections is always near and dear to my heart, having chaired at the district level many, many years ago, and I always love to see when we have the students come and perform and read their stories. And I think it needs and helps to remind the community that the arts are really a part of education, and we need to do everything we can to keep them there. So thank you all for coming this evening and bringing your youngsters with you. We just really appreciate having you share with us. And we'll leave it up to the families to decide when you're ready to depart for home, and that would be just fine. If you want, we have a couple of proclamations that are be quickly read if you'd like to stay and hear those to honor a couple of groups that are being recognized this month and next. The first is a proclamation, whereas February 1st through the 29th of 2012 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education, and whereas profound economic and technological changes in our society are rapidly reflected in the structure and nature of work, thereby placing new and additional responsibilities on our educational system. And whereas career and technical education provides Americans with school-to-careers connection and is the backbone of a strong, well-educated workforce, which fosters productivity in business and industry and contributes to America's leadership in the international marketplace. And whereas career and technical education gives high school students experience in practical, meaningful applications of skills such as reading, writing, and mathematics, thus improving the quality of their education, motivating potential dropouts, and giving all students leadership opportunities in their fields and in their communities. And whereas career and technical education offers individual lifelong opportunities to learn new skills, which provide them with career choices and potential satisfaction, and whereas the ever-increasing cooperative efforts of career and technical educators, business and industry stimulate the growth and vitality of our local economy and that of the entire nation by preparing graduates for career fields forecast to experience the largest and fastest growth in the next decade. And whereas Lake Washington School District has approximately 3,149 students participating in 86 different career and technical education options taught by 48 career and technical education teachers. Therefore, the Board of Directors do hereby proclaim February 1 through 29, 2012 as Career and Technical Education Month in the Lake Washington School District.
Thanks, Jackie. And I was hoping that Dr. Tracy Pierce might come up and just make a few comments about our career and technical education program and staff.
Thank you. I am happy to do that. Career and technical education is really at the forefront of innovation in education, and students in our district engage in business and marketing, science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM studies, and really push themselves to their limits. CTE is designed to spark the imaginations of students, and it's designed to play a pivotal role in us fulfilling our district vision of every student future ready. We've got a very dedicated and hardworking career and technical education director, Dan Phelan, and staff in Rita Smith, who work in conjunction with our teachers to develop program. CTE is designed, again, to create connections between the interdisciplinary skills and attributes and the content knowledge that we have reflected in our student profile. Our goal is that every Lake Washington student will graduate from high school, globally competitive for work and ready for post-secondary education. And we believe that our CTE program plays an integral part in our vision, and we're happy to recognize them this month.
There's my favorite statement in here that we all can do as technology changes. This lifelong opportunities to learn new skills goes beyond the schoolhouse for sure, because all of us adjust to things as they change from week to week and month to month. And we won't be meeting as a board till the end of March, so we're doing this one a little early for the Classified School Employee Week, which is going to be taking place in March, but we want to make sure we got that ahead of time instead of after the event. Whereas classified school employees are involved in nearly every aspect of education, including maintaining school buildings and grounds, providing secretarial and clerical assistance, preparing and serving meals, providing safe transportation, keeping school facilities clean and orderly, assisting in the classroom, providing a secure environment, and many other specialized services. And whereas these dedicated individuals deserve recognition and thanks for the outstanding work they are doing for this state, their communities, and the children enrolled in Washington's public schools, and whereas classified school employees are instrumental in fulfilling the state's paramount duty to educate children, and whereas by supporting the learning environment, classified school employees are crucial partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and school boards in public schools, and whereas there are 1,052 classified school employees working with and helping children in the Lake Washington School District, therefore the Board of Directors do proclaim March 12th through 16th, 2012 as Classified School Employee Week in the Lake Washington School District. And I know every single person knows someone in a building who is fulfilling one of these jobs, so during this time, please be sure and stop by and say thank you to them, because really our schools would not operate without these wonderful people who greet you at the desk and drive your children to school and help keep the building safe and clean.
Great. And I'd like to invite Deputy Superintendent Janine Fogar to come and make a few comments regarding this honor for our classified staff.
Thank you. As Jackie shared in the proclamation, this group of dedicated, caring, and professional staff play an integral role in the educational operations of the school district each and every day. I just want to give you a little bit of perspective on the scope of these amazing accomplishments of this group. Staff in this group supervise recess, they assist in classrooms, they act as crossing guards, they support teachers, they provide educational assistance to students in classrooms for our more than 24,000 students each and every day. They maintain and clean over 3.5 million square feet of buildings each and every year. They protect and care for buildings valued at over $490 million. And last year oversaw the completion of $73 million in capital construction projects. They support the recruiting and hiring of our staff, and they ensure that they are paid. Over $170 million in payroll and benefits is done each year in a timely and accurate manner thanks to these staff members. This group also oversaw our school food service program, where over 2.4 million lunches were served to students last year. Of course, they safely transported our students by driving over 1.5 million miles in the year. They also, of course, answer countless questions. They communicate, they alleviate the concerns, they provide support to all of our parents, staff, community members, and students. As you can see, these staff members serve critical functions. They're essential to providing for a quality learning environment for our students. They're an amazing job with efficiency, effectiveness, care to ensure that our students have outstanding learning environments, outstanding support, and they are to be commended for a job well done.
Thank you, Janine.
Our next piece on the agenda is our public comment time, and I have a few people signed up and just would like to give some guidelines of coming before the board. We'll have you come to the podium here in the center. Each person, if you would tell us your name and the general attendance area that you reside in the district. And we have 3 minutes for each person to speak. We do have a system here on the wall which you can, Vanna here will show us for you. And so when the yellow light comes on, it means you have about a minute left to speak. And it appears that everyone's speaking on the same topic, so it's really helpful for the board if you could not repeat what you've heard before or said before, and if each person could bring something new to the topic, that would be very helpful for you and as well as us. So the first person I have is Jeff Twerski. Did I push? That came out okay. Is there one on there? He found it.
How's that?
You did very well. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Twerski. I have a daughter who's a junior at Lake Washington High School. I had no idea that I would be here on a day that the reflections in the arts was being celebrated, as well as career and technical education, and I don't think that if I had known that I could have timed this any better. I'm here to present my concerns, and there are other parents who are here to present their concerns about the physical education and occupational education requirements, which I understand are state requirements, but it's the way that they are being administered, certainly at Lake Washington High School, and I can't speak for any other school. My daughter is a junior, as I said. She has strong interests in math and science. She currently takes AP Calculus, AP Chemistry, AP English. She takes Spanish 4, she takes band, she takes jazz band. She's taken history because I wouldn't let her take a push, and she's taking American Sign Language as a Running Start program. So she has a full and complete schedule. She maintains a 4.0 average, and she has done that since first grade. She works very hard. She ought to be a model student, but she's being told that she won't graduate. And the reason she's not going to graduate is she will not meet the physical education requirements of the state, because so far no one has been able to assure her that the district will waive that requirement for her. From 9th grade on, and probably before that, we were assured that if she was taking band, music, arts, and language, that the district would waive her physical education requirements. Now we're being told that until the district actually passes a policy that this would be good cause, that is not correct, and that next year she will have to drop band, she will have to drop a language, and she will have to drop other classes in order to meet these requirements. I urge you to pass that good cause and to take this requirement away. The other problem that she's having is occupational education. Chemistry apparently is not an occupational education class. Math is not an occupational education class. She wants to go to a top 10 college, and that's what she wants to go into, but that will not meet this district's requirements. Her counselor told me, and I didn't believe her when she told me this, that she could take an online course in floristry, and that would meet the requirement. It will have nothing to do with what she wants to do when she grows up and when she graduates college, but that is what it is becoming in this system. There has to be a way for this system to find a way for the teachers to be certified to the extent that they need to be, so that classes that are meaningful to these students are the ones that meet these occupational education requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia?
Yeah, my name is Patricia Hansen. I have a son who is also a junior at Lake Washington High School. He is registering for classes tomorrow. He has benefited greatly by playing the violin in the orchestra for 8 years now. He's taken honors and AP classes, and he's completing his third year of language. As we know, all of these are good academic choices and attractive to prospective colleges. However, in order to fulfill his PE requirements, he is faced with a difficult choice. One, drop orchestra, which he's been committed to for 8 years. 2, drop an AP course. Or 3, take a gamble that you, the school board, will decide that a rigorous academic schedule, including music, is just cause for substituting his 3 years of participation in cross-country and track for 1.5 credits of PE. As it stands, that's not allowable. Tomorrow, we are taking the gamble that you will decide that school sports can be substituted for PE credits when a rigorous course load, including music, which is an academic subject, is pursued. Thank you.
Thank you. And Liz? I'm not going to mess with last names today.
I'm Liz Hedreen. I also have a student at Lake Washington High School, a sophomore, so I think he's in a slightly better position than the juniors, but he does play saxophone next to Jeff's daughter. He also is taking an academically rigorous course. I just went online today and looked at the Yale University advice to students, high school students, on selecting high school courses, and their quote is, "Generally speaking, you should try to take courses each year in English, science, math, the 4 social sciences, and foreign language." So that equals 20 credits right there. If you add in band, we have the same issues with PE and occupational ed. And I wouldn't want to be the person who has to tell that young lady that she has to drop her music so that she can fulfill her PE requirement. Mark has been told variously that he should drop Spanish, that he should drop an AP class, that he should use equivalency credits, except we find out that he can't use team sports. He cannot use his Lake Washington soccer experience, where he's right now doing tryouts. That cannot be used for equivalency credit. So we have these kids who are really doing everything that you want your kids to be doing: academically rigorous classes, music, sports, but yet somehow we're telling them that this isn't good enough, this isn't right, you're not going to graduate. So we encourage you guys to help us help them, because we should be supporting them, not throwing obstacles in their path. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jill? Okay. You're welcome. Stephanie?
And I won't take too much longer, because I think everyone has already voiced my points. I also have a daughter who is going to be a junior next year. We face the same choices. We're going to gamble. I know the district does not want to implode the music department, so I think that something will be done. My request is that there is some sort of publication or communication and engagement so that parents that care a lot can be involved in this. So that's my only point I'd like to make, in addition to what other folks have already said. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's all I have signed up. Is there anybody else in the audience that had wished to come to speak before the board this evening? Okay. Dr. Kimball, did you want to respond?
Sure.
I know this has some
Yeah,
RCW type
sure.
legislative.
Thank you, all of you, for coming and talking on behalf of your students. We care deeply about academic performance and about students having choices, as you know. And what we discovered in the last year was, as we were grappling with PE waiver in particular and also other options, is that we were breaking the law. And so Dr. Pierce, who's behind you, has been working with high school principals about how do we indeed comply with the law but also create flexibility for students. And we're working through that right now. One of the things that you asked of, really of me and then subsequently the board, was to pass a policy that would allow us to waive a high school graduation requirement established by the state. We don't have that authority, and that's part of the problem, is that we don't have the authority to do that. We also don't have good guidance from OSPI on how to manage this situation either. So what I would like to encourage you to do as a next step is Dr. Pierce is working with high school principals. I want to put you in connection with her so that she can walk you through exactly what the law says we can and what we can't do. You have it authoritatively from her, and then also what we're intending on doing in the future and kind of a timeline around that. And that way you have accurate information so you can plan your students' academic schedule for the next year and a half. Okay?
Can I just say something real? Having a junior at Redmond High School, those concerns that you're mentioning are very common, and I see inconsistencies across our high schools in what's being told. So that's a concern that I would have. At a choice school, you can do an independent contract. At Redmond High, we were told that you could do a school sport, and that would waive. So there's some inconsistencies that I do think need to be dealt with, and the communication, I do believe, is a very important component in having a document that parents can access, especially for 9th graders coming in and 10th graders, more importantly for juniors and seniors.
So let me clarify, because a year ago, part of the reason why this issue has come to bear is because as of this year, high schools across the system aren't doing it differently. So they may be communicating it differently, but we actually got practice in a line because we were all over the map and we discovered this problem. And so we do have consistent practice today in terms of what they're doing, but we don't have a clear picture yet in terms of what is next and how. So for example, very specifically, you know, the RCW does allow for the ability to provide equivalency credit, but in doing so, students actually have to demonstrate proficiency in the knowledge portion of the PE credit. That would be an example. We've never done that, and so we're trying to figure out how do we do that so we can meet the law and provide those kinds of opportunities for kids.
So what would be the timeline in which parents would get that? I'm just thinking you have to have that approval prior to doing it as well as the component, and we have people who will be graduating and looking at, and they're being told to cut academic programs, which are incredibly important. And I
Tracy,
think
I'm going to have
address.
you speak to this because she's more familiar with the timeline and where we're at with this.
Thank you. When we, I'll just give a little bit of context and then let you know where we are and where we're headed. So when we started to plan for high school in the reconfiguration, we discovered that we had some inconsistencies across high schools in terms of we had some high schools requiring more social studies credit than the district graduation requirements specify. And so we began this process of ensuring that we're moving toward consistency, with our goal being for the classes of 2015 and 16, students who will start high school next year, that we would have all of our inconsistency of practice cleaned up. Our intention has never been, we are aware that for many years we have had counselors or teachers or staff members, principals, whatever, assuring students that they could waive PE, for example, and now those students are seniors or juniors. And it's never been our intention to change the game midstream on any students who are not currently in high school. So that's one thing that I can work with, and I've worked with the principals and will continue to, I'll connect with all of you and we can make sure, because we understand that that's a problem. There's also new language from the state board and new policy, new law language that's been recently passed, as recent as November 2011. One part of that is around PE, and in the past, students could be excused from PE for a variety of reasons specified in our CW, including physical disability, religion, a number of other reasons, and other good cause. And then the WAC goes on to say that such excused students shall be required to substitute equivalency credit. That was before. Now all of that has changed as of November 2011. So what was passed in November 2011 was that the RCW still stands, and it is a state minimum graduation requirement that students have to earn 1.5 PE credits. They can ask to be excused from PE per RCW, and the WAC now says that such excused students shall be required to demonstrate proficiency on the knowledge portion of the fitness requirement. So what we need to do from a policy perspective locally is adjust our policy to define clearly for students and staff members and parents what constitutes other good cause, which some of you are alluding to, is that I am in multiple years of world language and AP and band or orchestra, and then have a clear process in place for how a student actually asks to be excused, and when and how do they take this assessment that demonstrates the knowledge portion. So they're excused from that credit, from having to earn that credit. We'll have a policy in place in the fall for that. Now, we've said all along that we're not changing the rules for our current seniors and juniors if they were told sometime along the line that they would be able to waive PE. We will have the policy in place that legitimizes our past practice of waiving PE, because the truth is we really shouldn't have just been waiving PE historically. So we'll have that policy in place in the fall, and that is in place for the class of 2015. There'll be sophomores in the fall and beyond, and so our ninth graders in the class of 2016. So part of this is how do these rule changes affect students who are in the chute to graduate? And I believe that there's some miscommunication that's potentially, or differences in communication that have gone on. And honestly, you know, I just think there's been a lot of rule changes even as recent as November. And while we've been working, it was on our last level meeting agenda with principals to get clear on all of this, and we've got documentation. It's, you know, I'm not sure I'm surprised that because of all the changes, people are having maybe difficulty grasping that and communicating it well, and we need to make sure that we're providing the documentation so people are giving the appropriate messages.
And when could we expect to see that type of documentation? When would the community expect to know? Just thinking juniors are having to make decisions. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that like the end of this year? Is this the beginning of the fall? Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming it's around PE, health, and occupational.
Well, there are actually three different categories. So there's nothing that says, and even the state board documentation says you can't waive OC-Ed. I think what there's some confusion about is what constitutes OC-Ed. OC-Ed and CTE are a CTE course is maybe OC-Ed, but not all OC-Ed courses are CTE courses. And I believe there's some confusion about that in the system too. OC-Ed, there's certain things that the course has to meet to be classified as OC-Ed, but there's nothing, in fact, we've got state board documentation that says students can't waive OC-Ed. But they did adopt in November a way for OC-Ed to be counted as 2 for 1. So, and health is not a waivable item either, and I shouldn't even use the word waiver because that's not what's in the law. It's asking to be excused under certain conditions. So students can't ask to be excused from health or excused from OC-Ed. But again, we have had this variety of practice across schools, and so we did not want to change practice midstream on our students who are currently seniors and our students who are juniors. So your question was, when can we expect to have a document that gets this all clear and policy to back it up? We said by the fall.
But the juniors can assume so that the policy hasn't changed on them from what it was prior, even though the messaging might be different. That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'd like to suggest that we don't problem solve this here tonight. What I'd suggest is that Tracy connect with the parents who came and that we will get you a brief about the planning and timeline around this.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and I know we've had one, but I'm not finding it. That's my problem. I can't find things.
Okay.
So if you can remind us
Right.
too, because
So what I've heard is three things. Number one is Tracy's going to connect with the parents who came tonight. Number two is reminding the board about where we are in a brief. And number three, what I heard from Siri is a desire to get something in publications and on the website, et cetera, that clarifies these issues. So we will work on those things.
well, particularly if there's that much misinformation going around right at the moment.
And I'm assuming that it includes that Tracy will be working with all the schools so that all the juniors and seniors are on the same page.
Yes.
And I'd just add one thing. It's not actually for us. It's for the parents. We're suffering from the unclarity from the state board level. And we do actually have a former board member on the state board who is a good ear to talk to.
He's not happy either.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's been an issue all along, even back when my kids were in school and trying to decide, can you get excused? Been through all those band things. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's getting the clarity from the state. It's taken so long to get them to clarify what they would allow to substitute for a PE. We've always felt that if they're in sports, if they do ballet, if they're doing a variety of things outside of school, that should be able to be brought in, and that's been the hardest piece to get the state legislature to move on.
The problem is that PE now includes a lot of particular, essential academic learning requirements, benchmarks, standards, et cetera, and the people behind that think that's really important, and so they don't support waiving PE because of that.
Right.
So we have to work through this.
And I think the kind of at the heart of the issue is that the language in the WAC is ambiguous. And so we rely upon OSPI to interpret the WAC on our behalf. And OSPI is unwilling to draw a line in the sand and say, we're really going to say that we're going to waive PE because of the PE lobby, and that will go down and beat up OSPI around those issues. And so what happens then is OSPI puts us between a rock and a hard place with a lack of reasonable interpretation because the WAC is ambiguous.
Yeah, there's a lobby behind every one of these issues.
Sorry.
And that's the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, if you're wondering who OSPI is. And you certainly are welcome to communicate with them as well.
Who do you get to elect?
That said, the three things that I mentioned, we will get those addressed, and these parents can connect with Tracy. Thank you.
That'd be great.
May I say one last little bit, just on a kind of a hopeful note, that I think that historically there's been a lot of confusion in the WAC and RCW and all of this as it relates to PE. But based on what the state board did in November 2011, it's cleared up a lot of that. And that's what we need to ensure that people know, and we need to adopt a policy that reflects what the state board is now saying, and it addresses through this assessment that kids will have to take, that they do still need to show that they're meeting the standards, but they don't necessarily need to be enrolled in a PE course. So we've got some clarity.
And I appreciate the willingness to not put the kids that are in the chute in the middle of the change, because I think that's the hardest part, is you've been heading down a path, and to have that juggled on you that last year makes it really hard when you thought you had all your ducks in a row and ready to go. So much appreciated.
Actually,
thank you for coming.
So we've addressed PE very nicely.
Yes.
But there's a second concern there, which is around CTE, and I don't think there's ever been any ambiguity about a CTE being required.
No, as a matter of fact, Tracy mentioned that there's not there's not purview to waive health or waive OCAD. What's unclear is what counts as.
Yeah, exactly. So getting that out there as an
Yes.
explicit
Yeah.
piece in all of the documentation is what you need.
And making sure staff knows as well as
Yeah.
community, because it's not being communicated clearly from counselors to.
And the
Students.
definition changes, I'm sure, as time goes on from year to year or every couple of years. Great. Thank you. Our consent agenda.
Second.
You have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second? Did you second?
Second.
You have a motion, second. Chip, would you poll the board, please?
Chris? Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes?
Doug? Yes. Siri?
Yes.
And I'd like to point out under tab 11, again, we have a healthy number of donations totaling $72,189. We'd like to thank, of course, our donors, starting with the Juanita Rebels Booster Club to Juanita High School for $5,212 to purchase a field audio sound system. $28,400 from the Blackwell PTSA to Blackwell Elementary School for a variety of items, including their Building Leadership Team program, library improvements, staff development, and field trips, and then curricular aids for reading, writing, and mathematics. $5,641 from the Ben Rush PTSA to Rush Elementary School to provide stipends for choir and math enrichment. A $5,000 donation from the Lowe's Charitable and Educational Foundation to Keller Elementary for funds from their Toolbox for Education program to purchase playground equipment.
That's really cool.
A $12,000 donation from the Juanita High School PTSA to Juanita High School to purchase electronic reader board. A $3,000 donation from Intellectual Ventures to Eastlake High School to support expenses for their robotics team. A $2,636 donation from the Eastlake women's basketball team to Eastlake High School to support their basketball stipend. $4,240 from the Samantha Smith Elementary PTSA to Smith Elementary School to provide stipends for their primary and secondary choir and PE after-school program. A $4,059 donation from the Rose Hill Junior PTSA to Rose Hill Junior High School to provide stipends for their after-school Lego Club and intramural program. And lastly, a $2,000 donation from the Scholarship America Unsung Heroes Award to Evergreen Junior High School to provide technical support for their picture book project, again for a total of $72,189 during this particular meeting.
And also like to add our thank you from the board, and this has really been a real mix of not just our PTAs who are always wonderful and generous donors, but to see some of these other organizations and pieces in the community. I didn't know that Lowe's had a foundation for playground equipment, so some really good things here. Yeah, could you swap spots? If we're going to have this next topic, I think that we ought to have the person in the room with us. It might behoove us to have her here with us to have the conversation about superintendent's decision. You think that might be? Yes. So Janine's going out and going to swap places here, and we'll then move on to the next topic. Can we do the first EL?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
That's a short one.
So why don't we do, Jackie, the first two ELs. So under tab 14 is EL number 2, which is emergency CEO succession. And this EL is in compliance. And just as a reminder, we have a dual deputy system. So we have 2 deputy superintendents, one in charge of operations and one in charge of instruction. The designated successor, should I get hit by a truck, is Janine Fogart, who's deputy superintendent in charge of operations.
I'm leaving soon enough.
Stop hoping.
No, we're not.
Yeah, right.
And the second EL, and again, that was in compliance. The second EL is EL number 4, annual report to the public. That one is also in compliance. And the only thing I want to point out on this is we are continuing to work with trying to use our electronic media around the annual report in order to publish it online. And we ran into a specific timing issue, which was that our test score results would show up in August, so we would have things to report to the public around how the year was going in the early fall, but our books would not be closed until November. So what would end up happening is by December or January, we're reporting on the full previous academic year. And even in writing it, it was nearly impossible because you're thinking it's January, and you're trying to think about the year before about how you report, and the community gets a report in January around the whole previous academic year. So we broke it up into two parts. We're essentially reporting on the academic results right after the end of the year in the fall, and then we'll report on the fiscal results when the books are closed, so doing two reports. We're trying to refine our communication with the community, and that, again, is in compliance.
Great change.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to revert back to Jackie to handle the superintendent piece, and then we'll do EL7 next, because that one's a little more lengthy.
Okay, so now we are on, mic going, we are on tab 13. So everybody's there. As I'm sure everybody in the audience and on the viewing audience is aware, back in September, Dr. Kimball announced that he would be leaving the school district at the end of this school year, at the end of June. And at our November 7th board meeting, the board of directors reviewed responses that we had at that point, as we'd had a survey that went out to parents and staff and community and asked people to please share with us their thoughts about what the next superintendent might look like to them, and share those with the board. We then had a compilation of those comments given to the board. We looked at a variety of other things, currently how the district is operating, and the gist of the comments and what people were saying to us, what we were hearing from staff, and that following that discussion, that the board concluded that it would begin its search first by reviewing whether there were one or more qualified internal candidates and interested internal candidates. So the board weighed the relative values of seeking an internal candidate or initiating the national search. So at its our December 5th meeting, the board then unanimously voted to put forward Dr. Tracy Pierce, our Deputy Superintendent for Instructional Services, as our preferred candidate for the superintendent. Since that time, the board has done a variety of things, and the snow has helped to stretch things a little longer by getting all the dates and things that we wanted to do, but felt important that we do what we said we were going to do as far as getting community ability to meet with Tracy and see who she is, and to have time for people to get comments to the board. So we've had 4 meet and greet sessions in Sammamish, Redmond, here in the Resource Center in the city of Kirkland, at an average of between 20 to 40 people, depending on which of the places we were at, and had those that I talked to and watching the rooms, people were just very glad to have the opportunity to actually spend some time one-on-one. Not only did Tracy do a presentation and speak to the group, but everybody with the groups that small and people kind of coming and going, there was a really good opportunity for people to have the time to really stop, talk to her, share concerns, just overhearing some of the conversations, some concerns folks have about schools, about questions that they have about, curriculum, and about her herself. So she had that opportunity to do. So we had those all take place. We also had an opportunity for people to submit comments to us, which, if I remember the count, there's like 26 that we received from the public, sharing with the board their thoughts. So that's what we have to this point. And so I'm going to ask the board, what is your desire to do next?
Do you want a formal motion to continue with basically the hiring process, or?
That would be wonderful if that's where the board's ready to take that step.
Because I'm prepared to make that motion.
I'm ready.
Okay. You ready for the motion, and then we can have some discussion?
So I'll make the motion, and we may need some instruction is the proper language, but that we, consistent with the efforts that have taken place already, that we continue with the appropriate actions necessary to hire Tracy Pierce as our next superintendent when the current superintendent's contract expires at the end of the school year.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to formally hire Dr. Pierce as our next superintendent. So any thoughts, comments that boards would like to share beyond what we've done before?
Sorry, I'm actually all in favor of brevity on these things. We've spent a lot of time working through the qualifications, what we need, and I think there's some consensus among the board, and we haven't heard very much at all in the way of negative stuff during the feedback period. We've heard a lot of positive things about Dr. Pierce. So I think our preferred candidate remains our preferred candidate.
Well, no, as I've said before, excuse my voice, we've weighed heavily the issue of going outside to do a national search. In fact, the last time prior to hiring our current superintendent, we actually did an international search. But I think our common wisdom led us to believe that at this point the district is going in a very unified direction, that a lot of issues that have been hanging fire for some time are beginning to be resolved, and the time it would take, and we're talking probably 2 or 3 years, to get a new superintendent from another venue in place, familiar with our culture, and really able to demonstrate that they're able to lead this district, is time we can ill afford. And so we felt that, like our past superintendent, or our superintendent that will be leading the district at the end of the school year, we believe that Tracy will grow into the position. We have that high confidence in her, and that we will not lose continuity in this district. We'll be able to move forward, and this will be the most beneficial path we can choose to for the successful performance of our students. And I think we all believe that very strongly, that we can't afford to the uncertainty that an outside search might bring. We feel very confident in the choice that we're about to make.
Nancy?
Well, and as I said before, when we put Tracy forward, Dr. Pierce forward as our preferred candidate, I'm a strong believer in internal candidates if we have them, if we're going in the right direction, if we don't need to make a new change. So it was the first thing I started thinking about when Chip dropped his bombshell was, okay, who do we have internally? And Chip is known, and every superintendent I've worked with has always known that if possible we talk about internal development, because continuity is important to a district. It is important as we operate. We have a lot going on. A lot of things that some of us have waited a long time to see are finally happening. We're under a lot of stress in public education, economically, financially, but we are doing some really wonderful things in this district. And Chip has put a lot of trust in Tracy over the last few years, and we've come to know her, and I'm just real excited. I think she not only will be able to keep us on track with a lot of our initiatives that we have going, but I think she'll bring her own touch to it and move us even beyond. She's not going to be a duplicate of Dr. Kimball. Nobody could be, and that's okay. but I think we won't lose all those good things that, he's set in place over the last 5 years. I think Dr. Pierce is certainly positioned to move us on and continue this trajectory they're on. And certainly, when we first started asking around the district where people thought we should go after they got over their shock, it was always Tracy's name that came up. Always, just about her name, and just she has really earned the support and the respect and the allegiance of her colleagues. It's you're never going to have 100%, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody who comes as close as she has. So I'm just real excited. I'm going to get over it, Chip. Really, I am. I'm going to wish you all the best. And
Already over, Chip.
What?
I'm already over, Chip.
And,
Be better.
we're going to just move on with Tracy, and I'll plan to vacation in Singapore at some time, and then wait to see what you come back with in a few years. So I'm just really feeling really good about where we are. And believe me, in August I wasn't. So,
Yeah. Tell me about it. I'm past my shock. I'm still a little shell-shocked.
So as my understanding is, the motion before the board is to move forward with the preferred candidate and to negotiate a contract. Choosing a superintendent is one of the key decisions that a board member makes on behalf of the community. And hopefully it is a decision that is rarely needed during one's tenure on the board.
Amen.
Tell me about it.
Exactly. So, as a newly elected director as of January, I was not involved with the initial processes or discussions around our preferred candidate, Dr. Pierce, who was selected in December of last year. The strengths or weaknesses of that process are not what we are here to discuss this evening. At this point, my decision is focused on whether to move forward or not. Over the past few months, I have had the opportunity to learn more about Dr. Tracy Pierce through conversations, board presentations, and direct community feedback. It is clear that she does have a strong passion for public education, has been developing the necessary knowledge, skills, and attributes for the position of superintendent, and has a strong desire to develop the potential in the Lake Washington School District to reach the vision of every child future ready. In reviewing her application materials and discussions and during the meet and greets at our local cities, I was pleased to hear her describe her leadership style as one of inclusion and collaboration. This is a vital skill in our current environment, especially with as many competing interests that exist. In addition, she recognizes the importance of public, transparent processes that engage the community in a meaningful way early on, at a point where input can have impact. I greatly appreciated her expressed desire to extend outside the walls of Lake Washington School District to better incorporate all stakeholders in education by developing intentional strategies to enhance parent and community engagement, building on our past strengths, such as the budget process 2 years ago that brought community members to the decision-making table to help determine the priorities for their children and their schools. One of my goals of being on the board is to help develop those processes that let the public be a key player when it comes to policy decisions on large initiatives or district changes that impact their community schools and, most importantly, our children. So I look forward to working with Dr. Tracy Pierce to ensure that Lake Washington School District fulfills its responsibilities to provide a quality education to all our children. Therefore, I will vote in support of Ms. Pierce. I look forward to working with you.
So in light of all board members commenting, I believe that
I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You'll leave me out.
Reason we won't miss him.
We get to continue to pick on him for several more months. I've been very fortunate to be able to, in the past few months, and we've certainly worked with Tracy a lot over the last couple of years in her role as deputy, and had her work with us in work sessions and at our extended work sessions where a lot of materials, and we know the things and initiatives she's been working on with the changes in configuration and all of that. The last few months I've actually had more time to spend with her one-on-one and to be at the various public activities that we've had. And
each time I've been more impressed with her intelligence, her caring, her charisma, her willing to listen, and the image that she portrays for the school district. I think she is going to do us proud in the role of superintendent, and I think that as a board we have come together to make a really wise decision, and I appreciate the time and effort everybody's put into it. It takes time. I'm hoping this is my last one to have to be a part of. But it's always a learning process. It's always interesting to know what the public thoughts are and input that we've had. And so I appreciate those folks who have come out to take the time. When it's not something earth-shattering, it's hard to get people when they're busy to come out, and I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with the city staffs that have come down or from their offices to come to the meetings to have an opportunity also. So I think we've built some good. Added to all of this is building some more relationships with the cities and the communities. So I am very tickled. Look forward very much to the next few years and working with Tracy as our superintendent.
The next many years.
Many years, many stretched.
So I believe that under the law, we're required to do a roll call vote on this particular motion. So it has been moved and seconded that the Lake Washington School District Board of Directors hire Tracy Pierce as the next superintendent beginning in the summer in July of 2012, a contract yet to be negotiated. So I'll call for the vote. Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Siri?
Yes.
Yay! Tracy, would you like to come forward and say a few words? Yes. You can now
Thank you.
quit thinking, is this going to ever happen?
I really do want to thank the board for their kind words and for their confidence and for the vote this evening. During the interviews, the multiple interviews that I had with you, and during the community meet and greets, which I really enjoyed, by the way, I made a commitment. I conveyed my commitment to serve this district, to serving our staff, to serving our community and our parents, and first and foremost to serving our students. And I want to reiterate that commitment tonight and assure you and assure our community of my commitment to our district mission, our vision, and to leading and serving ethically and honestly and collaboratively with the strong staff that we have in place for the betterment of our communities, our parents, and our students. I look forward to a smooth transition this spring, continuing to work closely with Chip to ensure that we have a smooth transition and things are in place to continue the good work that we have moving forward. And I know Chip's committed to that as well, and I appreciate that very much. I look forward to many productive years continuing to serve in this district, and specifically in serving in the capacity as superintendent. So thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. We look forward to continuing forward from here. And you're not done, just so you know. Yeah. We still have plans for you between now and June.
So noted.
She has to sign before we tell her the hard part starts.
Not to mention straightening out King County and the state before you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. We may have to call on you from Singapore.
Yes.
Well, he's going to need those skills over there with his 13-member board.
12.
12. Yes, 12. Yes, 12.
I'm sorry, so what's the ratio of board members to faculty in your district?
I keep wishing him well. He didn't used to. It's good, strong shoulders.
Yes.
We've trained you well. EL7.
So, yeah, EL7. I do, if you don't mind, Jackie, I just would like to.
Please do.
Did we do, okay, we did the textbook adoption?
No, we've pulled that from the agenda.
Okay, I missed that then.
Yeah. This is a bittersweet time for me, as you know. I raised my children here. My youngest will be graduating from Redmond High School in June, we hope. I got to make sure she's taking PE.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the PE occupational credits, make sure those are all in place.
But I came here in 1996, young and ambitious and naive, and with an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old in tow. And, excuse me. Boy, I didn't expect this tonight. This is my home, and I have grown here, and I have the support of a wonderful board and a tremendous community and wonderful staff. And when you look at the list of people who've touched my life, it is pretty overwhelming. So I want to thank the board and certainly thank Janine and Tracy and the list of staff that, from principals to teachers to PTSA folks to community members to city managers to people who've invested in me and believed in me and helped me to become the person that I am today. I will work tirelessly till the end of my contract. Because I'm committed to making sure that this transition goes well. I've seen transitions in this district and in other places, and I've seen them gone well, and I've seen them not go so well. And one of the things that I made a commitment to Jackie in my conversations with her, and also as once Tracy was announced as the preferred candidate, the conversations I'd had with Tracy is we're going to make this transition go really, really well. Because bad transitions are bad for the institution, and they leave bad blood, and we can't do that if we're going to make this district the best in the world. So again, I thank the board for its confidence and its support, and it's challenging and appropriately so, and I would encourage you to continue to do that as you look forward. And I will bring back lessons learned from Singapore, and I will bring back lots of laughs about what a board of 12 looks like.
I can't wait to hear.
But more than anything, what I will do is I will bring forward into that system 16 years of lessons from Lake Washington School District.
Great. Great. We will miss you. But, and we know you'll do well there, but I think you should feel very comfortable you've left it in good hands.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, EL7.
EL7, mundane things like
under
board work.
tab 16. EL7, of course, is what we used to call the Big Kahuna EL, which is the executive limitation around our instructional program. And from an EL perspective, it is most certainly one of the most important that we deal with on an annual basis. And just for series benefit, what we do with ELs or executive limitations, or the ELs are the bounds or the parameters under which the superintendent can operate. So the board puts in place ELs which say these are the limits under which you can do your work. And within these limits, go do your work as productively as you possibly can. And for the benefit of efficiency, what we do as a group is we look at the ELs and we discuss those areas that are either in partial compliance or in not in compliance, and those that are in full compliance we don't spend a lot of time discussing unless the board wants to do that or the board wants to change the parameter of the EL. So I do want to point out in this particular EL 7.2, it was reported in being in compliance. That was a mistake. So if you'll notice right under where it says 7.2, develop and implement a curriculum, and then right under that it says once the adoption cycle work, this is, excuse me, page 5 of 25 under tab 16 at the very top. It says, Once the adoption cycle work occurring in 2012-2013 is completed, we will be in full compliance. So that was just simply a typo, that it should be in partial compliance for one more year. And that arrow should be the same as it was in previous years. This next year, once that one more adoption cycle is completed, then we will be able to report that being in full compliance. So I'm just going to go ahead and point that out, and that'll be changed for next time when we put this in the consent agenda. Under 7.3, develop assessments that will adequately measure each child's progress towards achieving standards. That is in partial compliance, and it's primarily in partial compliance because we're in the process of implementing our assessment strategies. So CDSAs, or the common district summative assessments, are not fully implemented yet. As we implement those, we will again have those in full compliance over time, but right now it is in partial compliance. I'm going to continue to move us because of the hour.
And I know you had received a number of questions from various board members, and so if some of those aren't answered here, it's because you have received an email with specific answers to those specific questions that folks had.
Yep. 7.4 is in partial compliance, and if we look at that one, is strive for improvement of every school, classroom, and individual student. And in this, we talked about the efforts that are focused on improvement. The school level improvement, of course, is around SIP. The classroom level improvement is around SIP, and then the work around our PLCs, and then individual student improvement is around access to specific programs. And it's really the individual student improvement where we probably have the greatest work to do, which is why it's in partial compliance. We do provide access to safety net programs. We do provide access to accelerated programs and a variety of other programmatic options. But because of funding limitations, primarily, we don't have the ability to get every kid to improve every year in every area, and therefore it's in partial compliance.
Do you see that being in compliance at any point in time?
You know, I think it's pretty tough to say that we're going to be able to get every school, classroom, and individual student improving every time. I mean, that's one of those where I think we've recognized. I'm not sure that we could, in any short order, say that will be in full compliance. Now, what's interesting is that the EL, as it reads, actually says strive for. It doesn't say actually accomplish. So if I were going to use the strive for language, I'd say it's in compliance today. We are striving for every school, every classroom, and so I think it's a little bit of a funny EL, because the way that it's read in the pure sense is we've got to try hard. But we are not a try-hard kind of organization. We are a results-based organization. And so if we say, are we getting the results we would hope for, I'd say we aren't there yet. If we are trying hard to get the results, I'd say we're trying pretty hard.
So sort of like the A for effort,
yeah.
C for
and I think where we
Certainly
have...
better than Nickelby.
Well, no, that was the remark I was going to make, is that we got to be careful not to fall into the trap. No child left behind.
That's right. And so I think what is more important, and this has been a transition over the last 10 years, really, is before we were doing end results reporting very well, this really was kind of the meat and potatoes around how are we doing. Now, because we have end results, this really should be probably rewritten more as a reasonable parameter. And I'm not sure that the language here is what we would now do, but I'm going to leave that to the board and then ultimately to Tracy to talk about over time.
And actually, that is a topic that we have brought to the table several times, and it's going to come up again at our extended retreat, is what are we going to do with the ELs? And
had Tracy and Janine start to think about what does that mean, and, what are we going to do with them? Do we need to simplify some? Do we need to beef up others? Do we do some combinations? How do we now make them work as end results have improved? And that's right, when we design these, this is really what we had. We may not change them at all, but it's been here for a while now, so it's time for a conversation.
So does that mean that at the extended work session, you'll be bringing proposals around any of these that you think should be fixed?
I think that's a yes.
And I think in our conversation, some of it is in how maybe some of the reporting might look before we actually change language.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, wordsmithing is always secondary to me.
Yeah.
I'm actually in favor of, pruning it back to anything that's the core of what we care about.
Yeah, and if you think about,
you
think about policy governance in the purest sense, the way that ELs were designed is that, again, these are bounds under which the superintendent could operate, and in the purest sense, if the superintendent is doing their job, you should be able to report in full compliance. There should not be ELs which are essentially unattainable. And if there is an area where the board has concerns about the operations of the district, then the board should be writing an EL which is more specific to those concerns. And those areas where the board is, quite frankly, quite satisfied, then the EL should be more broad and less constraining, if you will. That really is the conversation that should take place.
Yeah, and as I was talking with Janine and Tracy a little bit about this as we're planning for the work session, is as you look at all the things that are to read in here, begin, maybe this is something you can think about over the time between now and then, is kind of glance at these and some of the reports. And what areas do we really want to have the in-depth report come out of here? Do you need it as in-depth in every piece as we've had from, year to year to year to year, with sometimes fairly very little change over time. And other areas change quite a bit because that area is the area that's being worked on the most. So what would be most important to the board to see? So that might be a little homework piece, if not for then, but at least I think we'll come out of that, is that before we actually start attacking these, we need to kind of look at what we want them to be.
Well, and, we've had this conversation periodically ever since PG was adopted, because we've had this perennial issue, and I'm looking through, it's probably mostly in EL7.
Yes.
And so
I think
maybe
EL6
maybe EL6.
I think 6 and 7 need to be blended.
Maybe those are the two we need to, I don't know that we need to go back and look at all of them.
Right.
Well, maybe we could start with those two, which are the biggies.
Right.
And then the others we can go after we've kind of wrapped our arms around. Because a lot of times we get 6 and it's like, well, gee, didn't we hear that back then? Or we'll get 7 and go, well, it's not coming till you get 6.
Right.
So it's like, maybe they ought to be joined.
Right. And one of my suggestions would be to go and look at those ELs that are perpetually in partial compliance and figure out why are they perpetually in compliance, and go to the serious question, which is, so is there a strategy to get into compliance? And if
Exactly.
yes, then, okay, what's holding you up? And if no, then maybe the EL should be rewritten in such a way that, because having something in perpetual partial compliance is kind of pointless.
And it used to be that when we first started, the reporting was done a little bit different. And then we thought, well, then that's not exactly being honest either. So it is a problem.
Right.
I'd be interested in having staff be able to report by the March work session whether outside of 6 and 7 we have anything in partial compliance, and if so, what is it and why?
Right.
I can look at, I've got that at home, I can send you which ones we are.
Without going through all of them?
Yeah, they're sitting on my desk because I'm getting ready to send them to you.
And
I love
just
the way
in
you
order
keep track of
to
things.
provide a little bit of grace, because we invariably build the extended work sessions with way too much to do.
Yeah.
I would suggest that Jackie and Tracy prioritize what are the most important discussion topics, and give Tracy some time to step back from the policy issues and come back to the board with, this is what I think is a good strategy. And maybe it'll happen in March, but I believe there may be some other higher priority items in March.
I think we might have a discussion. I don't think we could, absolutely, we could not settle this in March.
And I think it was
Absolutely
basically
not.
to have this beginning conversation of what do we kind of want to do, and you've already answered a little bit about that. Do we tackle them all? Do we just take a couple? And how do we do those first? And then I think once we do a couple, then it's easier to say, okay, what do we do with the rest of them?
Well, it ties into discussing the ends reporting, too.
Yeah.
Right. And then lastly, I think it's also fair to give Siri some time to ramp up as well in terms of.
Exactly what I was going to say is, Siri, in this case, the ELs, as Chip was pointing out, if you've got things where you have concerns, this is where you put the thumb screws to them. And we can also look at, I mean, I agree, an EL I don't think should ever be uncompliable. ERs, we've got some that are uncompliable just because, we like to say it's still important to be good citizens or whatever. But they may be uncompliable to measure how good of citizens our children are. Right. But for this one, where you're caring a lot about the public engagement and process, that's where to look for. What's the language that exists, and how might you wordsmith that to get at what you're concerned about.
Right.
Well, and at one time, what was stated here about individual student improvement, this is what we got.
Yeah.
Because the ends reports weren't there. And now you should be seeing this conversation in what we're getting in ends reporting, and it's how students are improving, or what's not working, and what strategies are being put into place.
Speaking of which, I found that I had Word docs on the ELs, I think from last year's March. Which is really convenient to have. I've always wanted to have them just on my computer. And Siri would probably like to have them too without.
I have them all. The ELs?
Yeah.
Okay, she's already got them.
Yeah, they're on the portal.
They're on the portal.
I know they're on the portal, but I like to have them here.
EL 7.5. This one is ensure that instructional program includes all legally required courses and programs. That's in partial compliance because of the physical education minute requirement in elementary physical education. That one we never meet, and nor does any school district in the state, and there are no real consequences of that. So it's kind of a funny.
And it's hard to meet with space and, actually space and staffing are kind of two of the issues, plus time, little things.
Finding time,
I'm a little concerned about, especially given the conversation we had earlier, that maybe a footnote be included in the final iteration of this that explains a little bit more. This seems a little, if you were somebody in the public and you just, there's no plans to address it. I mean, does that mean if we didn't have the resources to do civil rights requirements that we wouldn't do it? I mean, we got to be careful about how we. So I think a footnote that elaborated on the reason for this.
Okay, we will add a footnote before it goes into the consent agenda. And I agree, Doug. By the way, it's. This one's a tough one for me, not because I necessarily think we should be doing more PE, but it's one of those issues of, so what if you can just ignore a WAC, which is essentially what we're doing, then do we just get to pick and choose which WACs we ignore?
That's what it opens a slippery slope.
Because we just have another one we could have ignored today.
Right, that's right. It's exactly the issue that we just kind of took on with fierceness. So.
Except for this one's elementary school and not graduation standards.
Agreed.
Yes,
agreed.
and that's where the state gets really sticky.
Yeah. The next one is 7.6, which is also in partial compliance, which states that we should ensure that the district implements a program of instruction that includes clearly defined standards, a comprehensive curriculum to help students achieve the standards, and a program of assessment to determine student progress towards achieving those standards. And then there are a number of sub areas, which includes opportunities for students to develop talents and interests in more specialized areas, addressing different learning styles, and encouraging innovative or experimental programs. We are in partial compliance for the same reasons that I mentioned in 7.2, which includes our inability to provide safety net classes in all areas for all students that need them. There were also some questions, as are questions each year, around this interest of specialization. So how, for example, does the increased graduation requirements impact the ability for students to access electives? Are there appropriate levels of acceleration, and what are obstacles that are created for students that want to access those areas of acceleration? How does the culminating project specifically address the ability for kids to pursue their interests, and how are we doing on those? Those seem to be the big three chunks that have been discussed previously as it relates to this one, and were posed in questions that were sent this time around this one. All of those are areas of concern. Mm-hmm. And all of those are areas for, I would say, deeper conversation at the extended work session in March that Tracy will be conducting. So.
And maybe this is a piece for us to have also in our mind, in the one benefit, too, of having this kind of statement made is the reminder to the public of the restraints that we have on us as a district for funding and space and staffing to do some of the things that we know are right, would like to try to put into place, but you have to balance it with everything else that you need to do as well. Right. And so when we have those, I don't think it hurts for the public to hear that these are issues, as well as when they are a benefit to their children graduating.
And I do want to just state a couple more things, and then I think there's some board members that may have some comments or questions. We are doing some really good things with kids within the resources we have. Kids are succeeding in safety net programs. We have, if you look at our AP numbers, they increase having been increasing over time. When you look at how kids are being served well, and we made a very strongly stated district decision, which was that we believe that all kids in our district should be eligible for college. And when we did that, that made a requirement with foreign language, for example, and made a requirement around mathematics, for example. And as a result of that, ultimately, kids may have fewer choices. However, 70% of our kids were already doing those things, and we believe that all kids should be eligible for college, and within the constraints of what we're doing today, it may limit some choices for some kids. Now, that also doesn't mean that kids don't have choices. Again, I think in March you're going to be able to see some proposed class schedules for kids that will point out how kids can get scheduled in the things that they may be interested in doing. So, comments, questions? I know Siri's looking like she has some.
Well, I think that leads in well to the public comment we had tonight in regards to the graduation requirements and that whole component, and how that is impacting what's going on with elective choice by having the college requirement there. And so I think we have to look at what policies we can establish to help broaden those possibilities for kids. Right now, you hear parents talking about online options for many, which requires money in which to do so. I'm concerned of a two-tier system concept going in, that those families that can afford it and know it are able to go forward and seek those other resources, and their child can have the opportunity for other things, and other kids who can't because their families don't have that capacity. So I think those we have to keep in our mind as we increase these graduation requirements and the impacts that it has. And I think we have to look outside our district. What are other districts doing in which to address this? How can you expand options when kids don't meet a requirement? What do you do with only 6 periods in a day at the high school? They now lose electives because they can't choose. You know, when my daughter was told, oh, give up orchestra so you can take an extra language arts class because you're struggling. Ooh, that was a good idea. No. I think we have to deal with that sort of thing more creatively because of the limited resources that Jackie talks about. And I think that's the piece to start looking at what's out there.
I just take a little bit different tack, although I think we're on the same page on this, is that I think what this body of work involves, and I know staff's put a lot of work into it, is it reflects as a district that we are gradually losing local control to control our own curriculum and our own standards. And as I said, I think staff is working mightily to try to thread the needle, as it were. But I think when the sun comes up, we still are left with the fact that our authority as a board is being diminished day by day by federal and state requirements. And, as we continue to try to figure out how we can thread the needle, we try to keep that in mind. But we're up against, the old cartoon figure of the guy trying to push the boulder uphill. That's kind of the role that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Well, and it also is hard when, to get even 6 periods a day, we have to have levy dollars, because that's where the 6th period comes from, and then you have a legislature that's wanting to reduce that by 4%. So it is that constant struggle of how do you keep doing the things that are right. Because I'd like a 7-period day personally.
I'm with you.
Because I think it gets past all those.
Engage the community really well to start looking at what options and possibilities and other creative ways, because we have an incredible, funding will be an issue.
Yep.
So that's the reality, and if possibly we can look locally for strength and different things, not that I think there's possibilities that exist that we haven't maybe explored as well as we could.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, probably as I think about the worries from the state reaching in and driving what we do, as Doug described, the greatest concern that I have is that I believe wholeheartedly and unequivocally that we need to make sure that every kid is eligible to go to college. That said, I also don't want to lose the individuality of our individual kids and their interests and strengths, et cetera, because when you look at learning and how kids will most productively learn, it is when that they can express themselves through their interests and passions in a way that will cause them to dive very deeply into something they get excited about. And if we suddenly create a great college prep system that is vanilla in nature so that kids can't express themselves, we're going to lose kids. And that we've got to figure out how to address.
And we had 4 students here today of all age groups in reflections that show what passion for something you love and what it can come out to be, with the talents that they had. And I don't want to see those squelched either, because that to me is equally important. And everybody that sat here tonight, we're talking about the arts piece that was important to their 4-point student and with AP and everything else, and trying to juggle all that. And it is hard.
That's what 4-year colleges are looking for, too.
Yep. Okay, those are the places of partial compliance, and I do again want to remind the board that there were a series of questions that were posed by Siri, being new to the board, and I did copy the board on all those responses, which you received this afternoon, and we can, if there are additional questions you'd like addressed before this goes into the consent agenda next week, I'd be happy to do those via email.
Thank you. Did you have anything for super report this evening?
Just, I wanted to give the board a quick update on 2 statewide things that I'm working on. The first is the King County property issue, and the second is the budget that was released by the House, just as a point of information. On the budget that was released by the House, in this year's budget, it was relatively harmless to Lake Washington School District. However, there was a footnote in the budget. It wasn't even as part of the budget, which was proposed by the House that beginning in 2013, 2014, that the state roll back 2% of LEA and roll back 4% of local levy authority, which would impact our budget by $7.5 million starting in 2013, 2014, which is traumatic. It is devastating.
On top of everything else.
Huge. And the politics behind it, we believe, is that this is a ramp up for the state attempting to do some type of reworking of how basic ed is funded, et cetera. But there's no roadmap of what that looks like whatsoever. And it was snuck in as a footnote to the budget. So tomorrow I am going to be writing a note to all of my 35 Puget Sound ESD superintendent colleagues with my own outrage regarding this little budget trick that I'm going to call it. Because if there is no roadmap as to how they're going to solve this for us, I just think it is absolutely absurd, obscene, unethical, wrong, whatever I'm going to say. And, I don't really, frankly, care who I make mad at this point because it's just wrong and it's wrong for public education.
What's the reason how do they even put forward rolling back 4% of the levy? What's the rationale behind it? The
rationale is that the state needs to find money, and by rolling back LEA, which is a state obligation, when the lid was lifted from 24% to 28%, it was done as a portion of a deal. And the deal was, we'll let you raise your lid to make up for state cuts, and in exchange for that, we're going to raise LEA, which is a state obligation. So, because the LEA districts wouldn't allow us to raise our lid without something for them too. So they're trying to save state budget money by rolling back LEA, and by doing that, they're also going to roll back our authority, which was given to us to make up for the state cuts in the first place. So that's the rationale. It's the way to save, there's $300 million that's hanging out there in the LEA pot. By cutting back 2%, there's some LEA money to be had. Okay, so that was issue number one. I'm a little ramped up about that one.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
And we appreciate your tackling it.
Yeah. The other one is I've been working with a King County task force on some property. I think just to remind you of the issue, there are 18 school sites that are in the rural area, which is outside the urban growth boundary, that are owned by school districts. Among a number of school districts, we own 4 of them. There was a policy change that was proposed this year that would essentially put the clamps down on us being able to ever use those sites to build a school. And part of this was a legal debate, which was one interpretation was that they were just simply trying to become in compliance with Plan 2040. Another interpretation was that that's bah humbug. We've been getting exceptions to this policy for years, therefore you should continue to allow us to do this. The rural residents were arguing on one side of the issue, the school districts were arguing on another side of the issue, and politically, internally, there was all kinds of politics at the King County Council level and Growth Management Council level and with the King County Executive that created a big blow up that culminated in a committee to kind of work this out.
Thank goodness that we had a committee.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would have just happened.
Otherwise, it would have just happened. So I've been appointed to work on this committee representing school districts, and we have come up with a framework which we think is coming to a fairly decent middle ground, which is a set of criteria as to how we decide what to do with these 18 sites. So one of the criteria is how far is it from the urban growth boundary. So if it's adjacent to the urban growth boundary, possibly the urban growth boundary could be moved to simply include these sites, and that's a consideration. A second is there sewer already to these sites? Because one of the arguments of the rural residents is they don't want dragging urban services into the rural area, but if there's already sewer to the site, then no utilities are being brought out there, so that's a criteria. And a third criteria is whether or not there's a justifiable identified use identified by the school district. So those are kind of the 3 screens that are being used. And then each of these 18 properties are going to be dumped into quadrants based upon these criteria. So that's what's being proposed. For Lake Washington and the 4 properties that we own, we've identified uses for 2 of the 4. 2 of them we believe that we will need at some point in the future, and we've identified uses. And in both of those cases, they are either adjacent to the UGA or they have sewer to them already. The other 2 properties, we don't have an identified need. They aren't adjacent to the UGA, and they don't have sewer, so I'm not terribly optimistic we'll ever be able to build on them. Depending upon what quadrant, then, the question is, well, then what's the solution? Moving the UGA is a possibility, letting a school district be grandfathered in and build on it, having to meet all the other King County requirements, of course, is a possibility. Having a land swap, if it's been identified as has conservation value, which a number of the properties do have conservation value. They may be, they might be close to a water source. They might have some type of conservation value, or simply let the school district hang on to it and sell it if they want to sell it, or not sell it if they don't want to. So those are some of the solutions being brainstormed. The next steps, we need to provide a report to the King County executive by the end of March, so we're getting short on time here. This next meeting, which happens this week, we're anticipating getting some approval around the criteria. The following meeting, we're anticipating putting the 18 sites in the criteria and then ultimately providing a report to the King County executive. So again, I am cautiously optimistic that we are making to some very nice compromise with the rural residents and the King County executive's office and the school districts, and that we're making good progress. I will update the board as this evolves.
Thank you for doing that. That's also been very important. I'm glad that they did look at the committee, because I know if they hadn't, it was going to be a done deal, and we would have lived with not being able to do the 2 buildings that we have really good plans for, or could have good plans for. Legislative, Doug, anything for us?
Sure, and of course my body right now says it's midnight in Tampa, and so I'm not asking for sympathy, but just understanding. This is week 8 of the legislative session. Chip just kind of outlined, I think, pretty well the kind of the big, global issue, and that is at least the budget that the House has proposed. Of course, the Senate's going to weigh in, and the governor will probably have something to say. But anyway, just a few details. In terms of balancing this biennium's budget, the House basically proposes that there'll be $882 million in policy cuts, and for a little less than half of that comes from deferring payment of general apportionment into the next biennium. So that is commonly called kicking the can down the road. Mm-hmm. And so, and that of course gets into the footnote that Chip discussed. It's kind of the end game that the House is kind of telegraphing, as it were. In terms of other bills, today was as I understand it, the cutoff for policy bills related to anything. But keep in mind, if it's something that can be tied to the ultimate budget, it could still sneak in there. So things like charter schools or something like that still could be tacked on to something. But in terms of what's left, there's really there's a bill related to open meetings that, of course, would relate to school boards. How special meetings can be waived by members, co-located facilities, which really deals with the joint effort that 3 school districts in the Tri-Cities have exercised to put their STEM school together. More issues related to school nurses, more legislation regarding career pathways, and something related to WAKIDS implementation schedule. So those are kind of the things that are still remaining out there. But that's, I think, a good way to kind of encapsulate what's going on right now.
And you may have said it, but when is the Senate budget due out?
I think I didn't see any date today, but I suspect it's sometime this week.
Okay. Future agenda items, anything from anybody that we want to put on to remember? Any debrief for this evening, comments?
I just had I don't know if you wanted to.
Go ahead.
Couple of things. One, it's been kind of a crazy start of the year in terms of weather and everything, but I just want to take this opportunity to note the passing of our school resource officer in Sammamish, Stan Chapin, who Tracy knows from working at Inglewood Junior, and he was just a wonderful person who was really a fixture, whether he went to the football games or the basketball games or just roamed the halls. He was there, and he was known for his raptor imitation that he and I won't try to repeat that. But anyway, we're going to miss. We're all going to miss him. It really shows you the wisdom and the value of school resource officers, because he and the other officers, of course, who serve in that capacity, build relationships with kids. And it's really those relationships that protect our kids in terms of heading off potential danger. And as we all know today, there was an incident in rural Ohio. It could happen to any of our schools at any time. So it's so important to have a resource officer like in the caliber that Stan exhibited. And then a couple other brief things. I was on the road last week, and I read yesterday's Tampa News Tribune, and just an example of, again, a charter school state. Florida's a charter school state. They have a situation in Clearwater where a charter school went belly up, and then there's a provision in the law for another entity to take it over in receivership. Well, apparently this new entity that's taking the school over is linked to the Church of Scientology.
No, I saw
and
that.
So there was, this article was 2 full pages in detail about how the kids had to go to a Christmas party and watch a tape from L. Ron Hubbard, who's the guru of the Church of Scientology, and it was a pretty amazing story. And so it's again a reason for us to continue as a state to, in my opinion, to stay away from that. The other thing is, I was in California earlier in the month with Mom's 92nd birthday, and reading the local paper, the Los Altos Town Crier in my hometown, there was an article about an elementary school that was a district school when I was growing up there. It's now a charter school, and it's the charter school, Gardner Bolus Elementary, is now fighting this Los Altos school district, elementary school district, over use of facilities. State law requires that charter schools have access to the district's facilities, but again, there's enough gray area. So this has gone clear to the Supreme Court. Wow. Again, all it does, in my opinion, is take away from the focus of trying to educate kids. A lot of attorney's fees, a lot of legal fees, and again, a problem with actual operation of these entities.
Did you get the email from Representative Maxwell about charter schools? She had a list of like 20-some issues that she kind of took the research that's been out there, kind of put them all in one list of 27 things that that are problematic to some degree with charters. And if you didn't get it, I'd be glad to forward it.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of stuff I need to catch up with.
I can
as far as
forward it
email.
If it's a duplicate. You can just, yeah. Okay.
Are you on her email list or something?
Well, actually, I had, on one day when I got it.
I get her stuff regularly.
Yeah, I don't, but I happened to be on a soapbox one day on charter schools.
And she's really, as a former Renton School Board member, I have to kind of do a shout out for the job that she's doing down there. She's really one of the few people who remembers, what it's like to be a school board member once they get to the legislature.
For me, the reason I got on my soapbox, and I'll do it very briefly, is the fact that I just don't believe that saying that you're putting charter schools in to help disadvantaged students. It's the way to get them into the state. I'm not so sure how many disadvantaged students are going to take advantage of a school that's away from their home school, considering all the other things that may be going on in their lives. That's a big deal to think about going somewhere else when you're trying to put food in front of your kids and a roof over their head. And it's a way to get it started with sounding good. And to me, it's a ploy. But
And the most frustrating thing is that we have proven strategies that do help disadvantaged kids be successful in school, but they keep cutting the funding for those strategies. Or they keep tying our hands to make it more difficult to do the things that we know work because they want some...
Well, I think it's a distraction. I think,
very
public officials are
There's
great at
some
offering
diversity of
distractions.
opinion on our board about this, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's our point to be debating charter schools positive or negative, because quite frankly, they're illegal in this state. No matter what I think, who cares? Until the legislature or the people change our Constitution, it's a moot point. I personally am in favor of the damn things. Anything, when you have a failed school, is better than same old, same old. You got to try something. But I don't think it's worth our time to debate what should be tried. Something innovative needs to be tried when a school fails. Fortunately, that's also not our problem in this district.
I disagree with your observation that it would take a constitutional change.
Actually, he's right. It won't take constitutional change, but we would need
We amended the
legislation.
Constitution to make charter schools illegal. Therefore, it requires constitutional change in the state.
I don't think we did.
No, as far as I know,
No, it
and
wasn't
this
just a
was,
vote down.
I think, evident when they did the charter, there's been at least 2 charter school initiatives to the people, and as far as I recall, they were statutory, they were not constitutional amendments.
And there were 3 of them.
I would think that as long as we are addressing the needs of our community in regards to our children and choices, and we make sure that we have options, and charter schools really won't be an issue because we within our district can address those. And so it sounds like as we look at choice schools and other options and pathways, all the value of a charter school can be built into the system currently.
And what I'm
That's where
addressing,
we should focus.
it's not the issue of the charter schools per se, it's the fact that they keep wanting to solve problems in public education with I don't even know what the correct word is, and yet we know some of the things we need to be able to do, and they keep tying our hands or cutting the funding or making it more difficult. I mean, we need more time on task for a lot of our kids, even in our own district. We need more resources, we need more programs. So I don't mind the discussions, I just wish they'd talk to those of us that are really doing the work.
I
Need our
just
staff.
can't resist hopping in a little bit. Haven't left the state yet. It seems to me that I agree with all of you. I agree with Chris that when we have failing schools, we need to absolutely be serious about getting in there and doing anything and everything in order to fix those failing schools. And if it means reconstituting the school and firing everybody in the school and reconstituting it, then we need to go to those kinds of measures to do that. That said, I believe that any and all schools in the state need to be under the authority of the local board. And we have lost local control in the state and in the country. And lastly, education in this state is fundamentally underfunded. We do not believe as a state that education is the most important thing. We believe it's about the 10th most important thing. And we have to believe that it is most important and fund it accordingly if we think that our kids have half a shot at competing with the billion students that are coming to market from China and India.
Okay, any other board comments, board follow-up?
I'm just wondering if we've heard anything about the hearing with the STEM school and with the permit.
The hearing is underway as we speak. I'm not right this moment, but it was happening today.
I was going to say it's 9 o'clock and they were not still
And
there.
it is going long, and it will likely continue through the rest of the week. So when I know something substantive, I will let you know. But it is, literally was going on today. So.
And can you just remind me the details? This is something about us being allowed to build on that site?
Just because I want to be unbelievably accurate, I'm going to ask Janine to speak to it.
Okay.
This is related to the conditional use permit that we need to secure from King County. So it's an appeal of the conditional use permit that's required before we would be able to get the building permit. So we have a meeting was today, scheduled for tomorrow, and then if necessary, they'll also go on Friday. And then there's a time period for the hearing examiner to make a decision, and then comment, and final kind of decision on that, which would then go to King County for issuance of the building permit if it was in our favor.
Okay, and so the reason I bring that up is the concerns that I've had raised to me by parents are that they have kids who are, they, as of, Monday? Today, had to say they were going to the STEM school, and they can't find the address of the STEM school on our website.
Probably because it doesn't have one yet.
So they really, I don't really care about updating us. If you wouldn't mind just updating the community directly off of the website, I'd love that.
Well, I'll ask Catherine to get something on the website, and it will be tentative, as you might imagine.
Yeah, I was wondering, does the post office give a number to just a piece of ground?
The STEM school actually does have an official number or site number from OSPI, so it is officially a school.
Okay,
We just
so
don't
then
know where.
So the post office may actually now have a street name and address for it, which is on Fall City Road, just kind of behind Elcott. It's that way. Okay. We are having our extended work session March 9th through 11th, so it's Friday evening, all day Saturday, and a half day on Sunday. We'll be meeting at Sleeping Lady in Leavenworth. And then our next board meeting here is on March 26th with a 5 o'clock work session, and our board meeting at 7, and that's a board meeting that has public comment. So I'll entertain now a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.